And today we're going to have a delicious conversation with author Anita Musgrove. She's the author of the Backroad Restaurants Recipe Series. She just released the Mississippi one back in 2021, and it's with a Mississippi publishing company, the Great American Cookbooks. And we all love our little low-key backroad diners and hangouts. And so what a fun conversation, and what a fun job you have, Miss Anita.
Oh, I do. I love my job.
And I got to find out how, first, welcome, but then how did you get connected in this? How did you find yourself so lucky to get to travel around and eat and steal recipes and then write about them? Which I don't think you steal them, but still.
I just borrow.
With permission, I know.
Always. My daughter owns Great American Publishers, and we actually did the Backroad series as a tribute to her father.
Did he like to go to the small restaurants and low-key hangouts whenever he would travel?
Yes, he would take, and we would just get up early in the morning and take off, and he never liked to eat at a big restaurant. He looked for the little mom-and-pop places, the ones that only the locals know about, and as we traveled across the countries, we found out, there's not a good list of places. You have to really talk to the people and find out the best places to eat. And that is, the out-of-the-way places, the little restaurant sitting on the side of the road or the bend of the road. It's got a little rusty sign that says, best food here.
You call them hole in the walls, but that's like with respect, right? You're not being disrespectful. That's just sort of the terminology of it's been there for a minute. Everybody knows about it, right? And it's just a small sort of quaint place. And they usually, you're right, they have the best food. And usually the locals are the only ones who know about it in terms of word of mouth. So how would he find these if you were traveling? Would he ask specific people? Because I'm assuming Yelp and some of the other online platforms to find eateries weren't necessarily available several decades ago. So how was he finding his little low-key places?
He would stop the little farmer walking down the side of the road and say, hey, we're hungry. Where's the best place to eat? And the guy would say, hey, you just passed the best place. He said, back about a mile and a half in the little bend of the road. He said, you'll see a little wooden chair. He said, just go through the door.
And there you go. And then you would order what? Hamburger, steaks. Oh, you probably name it, right?
Well, usually the places we ate at were meat and three.
So you had a meat and three vegetables.
Right. And we love the little places because you can go back 2 or 3 years later. They remember you.
Because you're different. You weren't local.
we were definitely different.
You stuck out, and like in the best way, though. It's like, oh, you came back. You're not from around here, so you're easier to sort of remember. And you bring up a good point, Miss Anita. If we get the chance to do that, you always leave and go, man, that was the best burger I ever had, or the best greens I ever tasted, or whatever. And you think, man, I'd love to have that recipe. But often you don't get the chance to do that because, they don't always just turn them away. So when you were thinking about doing the Backroads Restaurants cookbook, or I guess a cookbook would have to have recipes, how important was the recipes to it?
Well, you wouldn't have a cookbook if you didn't have the recipes.
That is very true.
But now we did run into restaurants it would take, and they did not want to give you their secret recipe. So we compensated with that by asking them, what did your grandmother like to cook for you, or what did you look forward to eating when you went to your grandmother's house? And there's a lot of recipes in these books that are a tribute to other family members. And we list them as local favorites or family favorites.
That's fair, because if it is considered a secret recipe, you don't want the secret that's in the sauce out in a cookbook for everybody to be able to replicate. But we've often talked here on Good Things with Anita, especially my mom's spaghetti. I have the recipe. I've made it 100 times. It don't taste like my mama's spaghetti. So there's probably still, even recipes you appreciate being able to replicate at home. It's still not the same experience as getting to go to the actual restaurant and sit down and enjoy them. But it's the next best thing. If you're not traveling, you can have your favorite dish right at home.
That's right. And we found out, people are just as interested into knowing what the chefs at these restaurants are cooking and eating at home as they are in the restaurant recipes.
Oh, kind of like your favorite musician, what's on their Spotify or their playlist. What are they kind of into, huh?
That's right.
Okay, so how do you go about doing this? So was Mississippi, what was your first one or state in the series?
I'm from Alabama, and of course, we had to do the Alabama back road restaurant recipes first.
And so, how did you get started thinking about how to compile that into a cookbook?
It was just trial and error to start with. We found a formula that worked, and it has worked now. We're doing on our 11th edition to the Back Road series. We're doing Georgia now. So I don't know if really what we're doing, is it working or not? You know, the book sale says it's working, so we just continue doing the same old thing we've always done.
Somebody's enjoying it, Miss Anita. I would have to say that. Okay, so you don't have to give us away your secret formula, but how do you sort of think about, I know with the Mississippi one, you have sort of, I guess, organized it into our regions. We've got the Delta region, Hills, Pines, Capital, Coastal. Do all states have, I know not similar regions as ours in Mississippi, but similar distinctive regions that they would be unique to their own state?
Yes, ma'am. What we do, we go on usually the Tourism Bureau and find their best region map, and we set each book up into 4 or 5 regions. We try not to go over 5. I think we've got one that did only have 3. But we set it up by regions, and then each region, the restaurants are listed alphabetical by city.
And then you get to feet on the ground, going knocking on doors, trying to find these restaurants, because they're the locals' favorites. They're not just out there listed for you.
Well, I talk to a lot of people. School teachers are my best bet on the best restaurants to eat. After being with those kids all day long, they want someplace good, and they want good food. So I talk to teachers, firemen, aldermen. I've talked to several good governors throughout these states. Policemen, gosh, just like the Visitors Bureau, like Miss Meredith at the Georgia Bureau just gave me a list of about 15 of her favorite restaurants. And I don't get to go to every restaurant, so I depend on other people to tell me just how great they are.
And then how do you narrow it down to just a recipe or 2 from each establishment? Or how many recipes come from each restaurant? We
ask for 3 to 5. And that's just because we don't want 50-pound cakes in one book. And everybody's got a good pound cake recipe.
That's funny. I love that. They do. I mean, and you would think that a pound cake recipe would be very standard, but it's really not. People will swear by their pound cake recipe.
Theirs is always the best.
That's funny. I just opened this one here, the Mississippi's, Miss Anita, and I flipped to Weidman's, which is one of Meridian's oldest restaurant. And you've got here their crab dip, their maple pecan Brussels sprouts, and what else is on here? I think that may be it. That's delicious. Those are good recipes.
They are good recipes. And if we don't think the recipe will go, or it's got like that exotic spice, it's $11 a container, we like the recipes that you have most of the stuff in your cabinet already.
Which I think lends to being perfect for a lot of your local and backroads kind of eateries, is because they're just good old down-home people too, probably not using the frou-frou stuff.
Well,
some are.
Some are.
Well, I guess they're using it over and over again. So they're using the whole $11, I guess, spice jar.
Right. In a restaurant, they probably do. But you're not going to use it at home. And we want recipes that you can take and you can open it up and say, hey, I need a good recipe for tonight. I got people coming over, and I want something different and unique. And you can find them in these cookbooks.
And then also, if you just think, hey, I'm going to visit somewhere or one of the states, or if you've got family members in a different state, just sort of seeing the stories, too, I think, behind the restaurants and then the recipes, too, is very interesting. Do you learn a lot about the local, not just culinary scene, but just sort of the culture and the individual, I guess, personalities of each state and region?
Oh, yes, ma'am. It's just like, I guess my preacher's wife, Jewel Faye Gray, I go to Rock Hill Baptist Church, and she says it's best. Her and her husband they travel all the time. And she says she'll pick up a new book that I've brought her, and she will read that book on those trips. And she reads them like novels.
Because that's really like the culinary scene. It has a story to be told. You've told Mississippi's and Mississippi Backroads restaurants and recipes. We've got more with author Anita Musgrove coming up next. Station. And sometimes we get the conversation started a little early over on our Good Things Facebook group, was where we did today. We're continuing our conversation with author Miss Anita Musgrove. She wrote Mississippi's Backroad Restaurant and Recipes, but she's also written 10 others on 10 other states, or she's in the process of writing her 11th. Is there 10 total now?
There's 10 total in print now, and we're on our 11th one.
You're on your 11th one. And so on the Good Things Facebook group, I asked you to share with us what are your favorite low-key kind of back road or local spots to eat. You guys are coming in strong. So Brad says Martin's in Johns, Mississippi. Are you familiar with that, Miss Anita? I know that's right.
I am.
Yeah. Oh, so, okay, the fish house that you mentioned was?
Eason's Catfish House.
Eason's Catfish House off Highway 43 in Mendenhall?
It's in Mendenhall, but it's on Merritt, right down below Merritt Creek.
So Rod Simmons posted that one as well, and you said it's the best.
It is the best.
What makes it special?
Because you never have to worry about the fish coming out cold. The fries are good. The coleslaw's good. They have some of the best turnip greens you've ever eat. And she has a special recipe she does with her hush puppies.
There is something about your local fish houses, and it's almost like your pound cakes, right? You feel like it's the same formula wherever you go to a fish house. It's got the fried fish, the hush puppies, the coleslaw, but yet it's different in every community. If you go, I mean, it's the similar because you're getting the same plate, but it's different, and they're not all the same.
Every fish house is different.
How many have you been to?
Fish houses in 73 years? I would say quite a few.
I don't need an honest answer. So, so I take it that you stand firm on your recommendation for Eason's Fish House. What about Danny's Italian Beef in Boonville? Tammy mentioned that one.
I've not been there, but if I'm not mistaken, one of the aldermen is the one that I talked to about featuring that, and he just sang their praises like crazy.
So when you're writing these books, now you've got like 10 under your belt, so you've got a lot of restaurants running through your head and recipes. But thinking in Mississippi, what stories stand out to you, Miss Anita?
Oh, gosh, just how these people started from nothing, and they built their restaurant, and they don't advertise a whole lot, and that's what we get in these books is, I don't want to be in a book because I don't advertise. And I tell them, this is a word-of-mouth book. This is a book that people are going to take. They're going to put it in their car. And as they travel through the states, they'll be able to take and eat at the best restaurants. You can absolutely go from one end of the state and always eat at a locally owned place to eat. We want to take and put the mom and pop restaurants in it because they're the ones that's still struggling to pay house notes and kids schooling and ballet lessons. We want to they don't have an unlimited amount of money to spend, and this is just our way because we say that we're going to get them in 40,000 plus hands in the next 5 to 10 years after they get in these books, and they are in these books for 5 to 10 years.
And because they're hanging around your community, too, they're also the ones that are, supporting the local softball, baseball tournaments, soccer tournaments. They're the ones that are sort of giving back and all. And so, we always support local here on Good Things. And it's a way of, visiting your state one meal at a time. And it does take a little extra effort sometimes to find the one off the beaten path, but you never regret it, right? Like, I think it's always, even if the food is not like the best because everyone doesn't hit a home run every day on every meal or every selection, but it's a story that you'll remember like forever versus just going to the local chain.
And all you have to do is go into these places and just start talking to the owners or ask about the owner. 90% of the time, the owners are out wandering around their diners, and just stop and ask them. They'll tell you the story behind the restaurant. And that's what we like, too, is because we like the story behind the restaurant because we say these books read like novels.
Does one story stick out to you, Miss Anita?
No, not really. Now, I love Martin's restaurant in downtown Jackson. I ate there as a kid. And there was another one in downtown Jackson that I ate at that's no longer available, to be in the book that we always ate at. But I just have fond memories of going into them, and Mom and Dad would take us in there. We didn't get to eat out a whole lot, but 90% of the time, we could just wander around in the restaurant. And most of the time, the cooks would take and come out, and get us and let us go back there and see, There's nothing better than a flat iron grill hamburger. There was one restaurant that I tried to get in the book, and it's closed, Mr. Max. And their cook would always take me back there and let me help cook those flat iron grill hamburgers, and they were delicious.
They are delicious, and they're seasoned with just memories over time, and so many stories in those different restaurants as well. Carrie in Richland said, Berman's? Am I saying that right?
Burnham's.
Burnham's.
I'm sorry, Carrie. Burnham's on Highway 84, just west of Collins. Are you familiar with that one, Miss
I am. I have actually eaten there.
What about Coney Island in downtown Hattiesburg? Just celebrated 100 years and 4 generations.
Now, I've not been to that one.
Oh, we were going to have to add that one.
We're going to have to add them next time we go to them.
Mississippi 2.0.
There you go.
When you come back through. And I know, how many restaurants do y'all try to get in each cookbook?
Each cookbook has 110 restaurants in it. And each restaurant gets a full 2-page spread that's full color. It has pictures, recipes, and it can be the restaurant recipe or it can be a family favorite recipe.
Have you tried any of the recipes at home, Miss Anita?
Quite often.
What's one that stands out to you?
In Mississippi?
Mm-hmm. Or any, actually.
Yeah, just most any of the recipes in Mississippi. Now, in the Alabama book, there's a mini cheesecake that I go over to Goat Hill Museum and sign books usually once a year. Mm-hmm. And I always cook about 450 of those and take with me so that people coming through the museum can take and taste them. And there's not ever any left.
I wouldn't think so. A good cheesecake there, it's hard to beat one of those. I'm thumbing through this and I'm getting hungry, Miss Anita.
That's okay. We'll go out and eat when you get through here.
Do y'all use your own cookbooks when y'all travel?
I do.
To look through and sort of see where you want to go and what you want to do?
I do, because if I go to one of the states, I put the book in the car with me, and as we're traveling, I'll go in and talk to the owners and say, hey, I'm Anita. I've talked to you on the phone. Might not have seen you face to face, but this is me.
This is me, and this is the cookbook. Dan in Hattiesburg said, was Bobby G's White House ever in one of your books? No, unfortunately. But see, that goes to show that there's still so many. If there's 110, there's probably 110 plus more that could have made it, and just, space, time.
Well, he might not have made this cookbook, but
She's over here taking notes.
That's right. I always take notes on the good ones.
Other than Mississippi, what was the state that you had the most fun putting together that surprised you?
The first one, Alabama, because it went so fast, and it was the first book, and it's the baby book.
It's the one that kicked it all off.
It kicked it all off.
Do you have plans to do all the states?
If the good Lord would let me live that long, I would do it. It usually takes about a year and a half to 2 years to put a book together.
I'm doing the math. You said you confessed, Miss Anita, that you were 73.
That's right.
We can get a good 20 plus more out of you.
That's what I'm telling my daughter. She owns the company. She's locally owned too.
Yes.
And that's why we stick with the locally owned. We know it works. And we know cookbooks work because you never see a bad cookbook.
Well, not from Great American Publishing.
Well, not from anybody, really.
Really? Well, a cookbook's good. Yes, you're right. Everyone loves a good cookbook. Where can we get your cookbooks, Miss Anita?
You can go on our website, which is www.greatamericanpublishers.com, and you can see a list of all of our books that we do.
What's the one state you want to make sure you get to?
Oh, gosh. The last one I went to was Kentucky, and I really didn't get to spend the amount of time in Kentucky that I really wanted to. We went up to see the Ark, and I did go to 5 or 6 of the Kentucky restaurants that were in the book, and I would love to spend a little more time in Kentucky.
Well, maybe the good Lord will get you back there so you can finish up that cookbook as well. But we want to encourage that when you purchase this one, you're supporting two Mississippians. You as a local artist, author, and then your local restaurants, but then also a local publishing. So I think that's important to share as well. So remind us, Miss Anita, where do we get it?
www.greatamericanpublishers.com.
All righty. You guys stick with us. We got more for you coming.